We all write every day, I believe, practically without exception, whether it's a Facebook post, an email, an Instagram post, or you're working on your massive epic novel, or you are working on some nonfiction book, or whatever it is, essay. And I believe there's something that those all have in common, and that is there are a couple of techniques that will make each one of those more interesting. Would you like to make your writing more interesting? If so, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Dada Groover. I am an award-winning author and speaker, and I am a founder of The Awakened School. We help people become world changers. That's work that I love doing, and I don't see myself ever doing anything else. And today I'm going to talk about how to make your writing more interesting. Now, there are certain things, like for example, if you're writing a novel, there's certain things that only apply to writing a novel or writing a nonfiction book or your memoir, which hopefully is also nonfiction. There are some exceptions to that rule, isn't there? Anyway, if you want to make your writing more interesting, there's a couple of rules that will make a lot of difference. And these might sound simple, but it's amazing to me how many people, even if they know what they are, they don't do them. The first thing is keeping it short. The more words you use when you write something, the less interesting it becomes. So obviously you need to get your message through. You need to put your content out there, so you have to use enough words, but you want to keep it to the minimum. I can't tell you how many things I have read by students of mine or just people that are creating some email or something, and they kind of repeat and say the same thing in different words, and it's not only unnecessary, it just makes it far less interesting. So the fewer words you use, the better, without exception. That's rule number one. Rule number two is to create questions as you go along. So let's just pretend we're talking about novels only. And again, this applies to every single type of writing that I talked about already. If you ask questions or raise questions, it doesn't have to be like, where were you, this or that, or it can be just raising a question. Like, for example, something happens in the first scene. And by the way, next time you watch a movie, notice how many questions are raised in the first scene. It might be one, it might be more, but there is virtually, without exception, there's going to be at least one question raised in the very first scene. And that question at some point will be answered, with some exceptions. There are actually some really good works of literature out there and or movies that will not answer every single question. So you don't have to answer every single question. When you write an email, you can also pose a question. When you shoot a video, you can start with questions. And what I would recommend to do this properly, when I say properly, do this effectively, make a list of your questions. So again, let's just say, for example, you're writing a novel. You might have scene one, whoever the hero of the story is. Jacob goes shopping and runs into an old high school friend who won't talk to him. And he doesn't know why. So the question would be, why doesn't the friend talk to him? The second question could be, what did they do or what happened that would make him not want to talk to Jacob? Right. So, and you can go on and on. There could be different things, different questions there. And the questions can be answered at different points in the story. So what I have found, again, as a novelist, is to vary the distance between the question and the answer. So in other words, in this example, so Jacob runs into an old high school friend, and the guy won't speak to him. He won't, he pretends he just like, I'm out of here, I'm not going to talk to you. He pretends he doesn't even know him. So that's the question, right? That's one question that could be answered in chapter 3. It could be answered on page 2, right? How much space you put is up to you, but my suggestion is vary that amount of space. So you could have several questions on page 1 of your book, and then you could have one question on page 14, and then the question on 14 is actually a bigger question that takes longer to answer. Or it could be a smaller question that takes even longer to answer. It's not answered until the end of the book. It's your art to decide how much space you have between. And I highly recommend you overlap. So virtually every genre of writing has questions. They might be done differently in an action novel than in a romance novel, than in a science fiction novel, but they all have questions. And that's what keeps readers turning the page. When you write an email, try this. Try raising something that is going to raise that reader's eyebrows a little bit, like, huh? What's going on here? And they want to read more. It will make it more interesting. And then you can go to another question before you answer the first question. And I'm not a fan of long emails. In fact, you ask anybody who knows me, if they send me an email, like, and I see some of these emails that are like, really? How many hours did you spend writing that email? I will still write a short reply. I like short emails, but I love to put some questions in there. I feel it makes it much more intriguing, and I'd like you to try that. Next time you do an email, next time you do a post, you might do a post with something really awesome, but notice something. Those posts that get a lot of response and get a lot of attention, they almost always have questions in them. And they don't have to be something completely ridiculous that don't have anything to do with what you're proposing, what you're posting about, but have something that will intrigue, that'll captivate the imagination of whoever is reading that. Now, if you are writing a book, and as you know, I train writers, and I love doing that. There are a lot of other ways to make a book interesting. There's so many different ways, from character development to having an interesting scene, dialogue that's really good. But I'm talking about what is universal to virtually all types of writing. So one way is keeping it as short as possible. Don't use any extra words. Just don't do it. And the other way is asking questions, raising questions. Sorry, asking questions is a little misleading because some people think like, oh, well, you got to ask them a question. And you can. That could be a way of raising a question. But raising a question can be done with some action. It can be done with dialogue. And in the case of an email, it can be a direct question. It can be in a book. Any way you do it. But anyway, raising questions is what I'm talking about, and that will generate interest. Overlap your questions, like I was saying before. So you raise a question, you raise a second question, you answer the first question, and by the way, you don't have to do it like that. You can raise one question, a second question, a third question before you answer the first question, but you want to give the reader of your email or post or novel some kind of satisfaction when the questions are answered. Now, obviously, a post, an email, there may only be room for one question, but if you do put that question in there, it will make it much more interesting. I promise you. I hope you like this. If you click subscribe and ding that little bell, you will get notifications whenever I put a new video out, and I would love for you to do that. It makes me feel very good to see like, oh, I've got another 3 subscribers. I got another 17 subscribers this week. It makes me feel very good. It will encourage me to make more videos. I'm not trying to bribe you, but I'm just saying, I would love that. I felt a little goofy today, apparently, didn't I? This is Dada Groover, signing out.